Welcome back to Whispers in the Dark. Tonight, we are going somewhere we were never meant to return to. Somewhere beneath memory. Somewhere beneath sleep. Somewhere that wears childhood like a mask stitched from dead skin. This is not the Wonderland of teacups, riddles, and painted roses. This is the realm that waited behind the nursery door. The place Alice Little escaped only by leaving pieces of herself behind. The place that sank its claws into her bloodline, into her daughter Callie Little, born Carol Ann Little, and then into Violet Little, the next bright thing the dark wished to swallow. So dim the lights and listen closely. Now let's begin. No matter how sweetly it begs. The rain had been falling for 3 days when Callie Little returned to the house. It stood at the end of a narrow country road, crooked and pale, beneath a sky the color of old bruises. The little house had always looked wrong from the outside, as if the world had tried to forget its shape and failed. Its upper windows were too tall. Its porch sagged like a broken jaw. Ivy gripped the brick in black, wet ropes, and the front door had swollen with damp until it seemed to breathe. Callie sat in her car with both hands on the steering wheel, watching rain crawl down the windshield. She was older now than Alice had been when the madness finally split her open. There were silver strands at Callie's temples, fine lines at the corners of her eyes, and a permanent tightness around her mouth from years spent pretending she was not afraid. She had survived Wonderland more than once. She had worn a crown there. She had bled for it. She had watched monsters kneel and monsters laugh, and monsters were the faces of loved ones. But nothing had ever frightened her as much as this house. Beside her on the passenger seat lay a cracked leather journal. Its cover was dark green, almost black. Alice Little's journal, her mother's final confession. It had arrived 2 mornings ago, wrapped in brown paper, with no return address and no postage mark. Inside, on the first page, written in Alice's thin, wavering script, was a single line. Callie, if you are reading this, then Wonderland has learned how to come home. She had not slept since. The call had come the same evening. Violet's voice had crackled through the phone, low and frightened. Mom, there's something in Grandma Alice's room. Then the line filled with static, and under it, faint but unmistakable, came the sound of laughter. Not Violet's laughter, a man's laughter, high and wet and breathless, as if the person laughing had a mouth full of blood. Callie had driven through the night. Now the house waited. She stepped out into the rain. The cold struck her first, sharp and searching. It crept under her coat and along her spine. The yard smelled of mud, dead leaves, and something faintly sweet, like fruit left to rot in a sealed room. As she walked toward the porch, the floorboards groaned before her boots touched them. On the front door, someone had carved a rabbit, not painted, not drawn, carved deep through the wood, every stroke jagged, every cut dark with sap that looked too much like dried blood. The rabbit stood upright, dressed in a waistcoat, one paw raised as if knocking from the other side. Callie touched the carving. The wood pulsed beneath her fingertips. From inside the house, a clock struck 13. Callie took the key from her pocket and entered. The smell inside was worse. Dust, mildew, candle wax, old meat. The foyer looked almost as she remembered it, though memory had softened the corners. The staircase rose ahead, narrow and steep, its banister polished by generations of anxious hands. Family portraits lined the walls, their faces dim beneath cloudy glass. Alice as a young woman, beautiful and hollow-eyed. Callie as a child, standing stiffly beside her mother. Violet at 6 years old, smiling with 2 missing teeth and sunlight in her hair. Callie froze. In the portrait, Violet's smile widened. Just a fraction. Then a bead of red slipped from one painted nostril and slid down the canvas. Callie backed away, breath catching. A whisper came from the hallway. "Alice." It was soft, tender, almost loving. Callie turned. At the far end of the hall stood the white rabbit. He was not the small, nervous creature children imagined. He was tall enough to look a man in the throat, with long hind legs bent backward beneath a filthy waistcoat that had once been white. His fur hung in damp clumps. One eye was pink and bright. The other was missing, the empty socket packed with ticking gears and little brass teeth that clicked as he blinked. A watch chain dangled from his vest. At the end of it hung not a watch, but a tiny human jawbone, polished smooth. He smiled. "Late," said the rabbit. Callie reached beneath her coat and drew the knife she had sworn never to carry again. Its blade had been forged in Wonderland from silver stolen from the Queen of Hearts, and cooled in the blood of a thing that had no name. It hummed in her hand like an angry insect. "Where is Violet?" The rabbit tilted his head. One ear flopped sideways with a damp slap. Violet, such a pretty color, such a bruising color, such a color beneath skin when fingers pressed too long. Callie lunged. The rabbit vanished into the dark with a sound like paper tearing. Her knife sliced empty air. From upstairs came Violet's scream. Callie ran. The staircase stretched as she climbed. It should have been 16 steps. She counted 20, 30, 50. The walls leaned inward, portraits watching with wet eyes. Alice's painted mouth opened in every frame, whispering words Callie could not make out. By the time she reached the landing, her lungs burned. Alice's bedroom door stood open. Inside, every mirror had been turned to face the bed. There were 7 of them. Tall mirrors, hand mirrors, a cracked vanity mirror. Their surfaces were black, not with darkness, but with depth. Each reflected a different room that was not in the house. A forest of white trees hung with meat. A banquet table set with fingers. A courtroom full of faceless playing cards. A nursery where dolls breathed. And in the largest mirror, Violet. She stood barefoot in the center of a ruined garden, rain falling upward around her. She was older than Callie remembered and younger than she should have looked. Wonderland always did that to people. It rearranged them, stole years, gave them back wrong. Violet wore a torn nightdress, her dark hair pasted to her face, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Behind her, roses climbed a trellis of bone. "Mom," Violet whispered from the glass. Callie stepped forward. "Do not move. I'm coming." Violet's eyes widened. "No, Mom, it wants you to." A hand appeared on Violet's shoulder. Long fingers. White gloves stained brown at the tips. A sleeve of purple velvet. Then the Mad Hatter leaned into view. His face was not a face so much as an argument between skin and rot. His smile cut too wide, nearly to the ears, exposing teeth filed into little porcelain points. His hat rose tall and crooked, decorated with moth wings, baby teeth, and the dried tongues of those who had answered his riddles incorrectly. One eye was bright blue. The other was a black button sewn into the socket with red thread. He rested his chin on Violet's shoulder. "Why, Callie," he said, "you look tired. Would you like some tea?" Callie slammed the knife into the mirror. Glass shattered. The room screamed. Every mirror burst at once, spraying black shards across the floor. Something wet hit Callie's cheek. She wiped it away and saw that it was not blood. It was tea. Hot, dark tea that smelled of rust and lavender. The broken pieces on the floor began to move. Each shard reflected an eye. The eyes blinked. Then the floor opened. Callie fell through Alice's bedroom and into Wonderland. She struck mud hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. Rain poured down around her, but it was warm, almost feverish. And when she pushed herself up, she saw that it was not rain at all. It was red. The sky above Wonderland throbbed like a living organ, veined with lightning. Clouds dragged themselves across it in swollen knots. The horizon pulsed. Far away, something enormous groaned in its sleep. Callie stood in the middle of a road made of crushed china and teeth. On either side stretched the tulgey wood. The trees had white bark, smooth as bone, and their branches twisted into hands. From those branches hung clocks, lanterns, and cages. Some cages held birds. Some held hearts, still beating. One held a human face with no skull behind it, blinking slowly as it whispered for water. Callie gripped her knife. "Violet." Her voice vanished into the trees. The forest answered with giggles. A grin appeared in the dark. Only a grin at first, wide and luminous, floating between two bone-white trunks. Then eyes opened above it, yellow and slitted. The Cheshire Cat stepped out of nothing. He was huge, larger than a panther, with fur striped in smoke gray and funeral black. His body faded at the edges, not fully solid, as if reality could not decide whether to keep him. His paws made no sound on the broken road. His mouth was too large for his skull, stretching back toward his ears in a crescent of gleaming fangs. "Callie little," he purred. "Home again, dragged by the skin. Where is she, Cheshire?" Which she, Alice she, Violet she, White Queen she, Mother she, Daughter she. The realm has so many littles in its teeth. Callie raised the blade. I am not playing. The cat's grin widened. That was always your problem. You thought Wonderland was playing. He circled her, tail curling like smoke. Your daughter is at the table. Your mother is in the walls. Your blood is in the roots. And the hatter has poured the tea. Callie turned slowly, keeping him in sight. Take me to Violet. The cat sat and licked one paw. His tongue was black. No. Callie stepped closer. Then get out of my way. The grin vanished. The eyes remained. I could, said Cheshire. Or I could peel the memory of your daughter from your mind and eat it in front of you. I wonder which would hurt more. Callie moved before he finished speaking. The knife cut through his shoulder. Smoke and black blood sprayed across the road. The cat shrieked, and for one moment his body became solid enough for pain. He sprang at her, claws flashing. Callie dropped, rolled beneath him, and slashed upward. The blade opened his belly. What spilled out was not organs. It was laughter. Thick, wet laughter poured from him in pink ropes, splattering the china road and wriggling like worms. Tiny mouths formed in the mess and began to chuckle. Cheshire staggered, his grin trembling. Rude, he hissed. Callie stood, breathing hard. Take me to the table. The cat's wounds closed with a sound, like lips sealing. Very well, he said. But when the tea is served, do not drink. When the cakes are offered, do not eat. And when the hatter asks what you have lost, lie. Why? Because if you tell the truth, he will give it back. The cat turned and walked into the trees. Callie followed. The tulgey wood closed around them. Every step took her deeper into rot. Mushrooms rose from the mud, tall as children, their caps slick and red. Some had faces. Some had fingers. They turned as Callie passed, opening tiny mouths to sing nursery rhymes in Alice's voice. The path narrowed. They came upon the caterpillar in a clearing filled with blue smoke. He lounged on a throne made of folded human skins, his long, segmented body glistening under a haze of opium-colored vapor. He was enormous, pale green and soft, with a human face set into the front of him like a mask pressed into dough. His eyes were heavy. His lips were purple. In one delicate hand, he held a hookah pipe carved from bone. Callie Little, the caterpillar murmured. Still running from doors you opened. Callie stopped. Where is Violet? He exhaled. The smoke drifted toward her and became tiny white rabbits, each one screaming silently before dissolving. Where is Alice? He asked. Dead? The caterpillar smiled. No one is dead in Wonderland. Not properly. Death here is only a room with poor ventilation. The trees behind him shifted. Callie saw shapes hanging there, wrapped in silk. Bodies, some fresh, some old. Some had Alice's face. Some had Callie. One had Violet's hair. She stepped forward. Do not show me tricks. The caterpillar's smile sagged. Wonderland is a trick. You are a trick. Alice was a trick played on flesh by a hungry god wearing a child's story as a glove. He leaned closer, his many little legs twitching. The Hatter has your daughter. The Queen of Hearts has your mother. The Jabberwocky has your ending. Callie felt cold spread through her. What does that mean? The caterpillar tapped ash onto the ground. It means the table is set for 3. Cheshire's voice drifted from above. He had stretched along a branch, nearly invisible except for his grin. Ask him about the door. Callie looked at the caterpillar. What door? The caterpillar sighed, as if disappointed. The first door. The one Alice found when she was small. The one Charles Dodgson opened when he learned children were keys. At the name, the forest grew silent. Callie remembered fragments from Alice's journal. A man, a sacrifice, the old hunger behind Wonderland. Children taken, doors fed. Alice escaped, but not whole. No one ever escaped whole. The caterpillar's face twitched. Your mother left a shape behind when she fled. Wonderland filled that shape with itself. It has worn her ever since, calling to her children, then their children. You think you came here to rescue Violet. Callie's grip tightened. I did. No, whispered the caterpillar. You came because Wonderland is molting, and it needs a queen made of little blood to crawl inside. The ground split beneath him. Roots burst up, pale and wet, wrapping around the caterpillar's throne. His calm expression broke. He shrieked as the roots pierced him, sliding into his soft body, bulging beneath his skin. His segments convulsed. Blue smoke turned black. The throne of skins unfolded, and the faces sewn into it began screaming with him. Callie stumbled back. The caterpillar's body split lengthwise. Inside him was a door. Small, green, familiar. A little golden knob blinked at her with one sleepy eye. The dormouse whispered Cheshire. That is not funny, Callie said. Nothing is, said the cat. That is why everyone here laughs. The door opened. Beyond it was the tea party. Music spilled through first. A warped little melody played on out-of-tune strings. Then came the smell of sugar, blood, and burnt hair. Callie stepped through. The table stretched across a dead meadow beneath a moon shaped like an open wound. It was impossibly long, covered with lace stained brown from old spills. Teacups were stacked in towers. Plates held pastries glazed with red jelly finger sandwiches, with fingernails still attached. Little cakes iced with words like eat me, forgive me, and mother. At the far end of the table sat Violet. She was tied to a high-backed chair with ribbons of red silk. Her mouth was free, but her wrists were bound. Her eyes found Callie, and the relief in them was so raw it nearly broke her. Mom, Callie took one step. The Mad Hatter appeared between them. No running at the table, he said. Around him sat the March Hare and the Dormouse. The March Hare was gaunt and twitching, his ears pinned with silver forks. his mouth stained dark from chewing things that had begged him not to. The dormouse lay in a cracked teapot, only its little face visible, eyes sewn shut, whispering riddles in its sleep. The Hatter spread his arms. Welcome, honored guest. Welcome, runaway queen. Welcome, daughter of Alice, mother of Violet, bride of madness, widow of every sane thing you ever loved. Callie's voice was low. Let her go. Of course, said the Hatter. After tea, he pulled out a chair. Sit. The meadow shivered. From the grass, rose playing cards with spears, their flat faces painted with red hearts. They surrounded Violet's chair. One pressed a spear point beneath her chin. Callie sat. The Hatter clapped. Tea. The cook emerged from beneath the table. She was huge, wrapped in a stained apron, her face hidden behind a veil of greasy hair. In one hand she carried a kettle. In the other, a cleaver as broad as a shovel. The kettle hissed and spat. Something inside it knocked against the metal, not yet dead. She poured tea into Callie's cup. The liquid was black. An eyeball floated to the surface and stared at her. Drink, said the Hatter. No. The Hatter pouted. Guests are so rude these days. Alice drank. Eventually. Callie stared at him. What did you do to my mother? The Hatter's smile softened into something worse than cruelty. Nostalgia. Alice was a lovely guest. So small the first time. So breakable. She came with bright eyes and a child's soft hands, and Wonderland kissed her until she learned that kisses could have teeth. Violet strained against the ribbons. Don't listen to him. The Hatter bent close to Callie. She left part of herself here, you know, a shining little fragment. We dressed it up. We taught it songs. We taught it hunger. Would you like to see her? Callie said nothing. The Hatter lifted a silver spoon and tapped his cup 3 times. The tablecloth bulged. Something crawled beneath it, moving from the far end toward Callie. Plates rattled. Cups tipped. The March Hare giggled and clapped his bony paws. The bulge reached Callie's place setting. A hand emerged. Thin, pale, familiar. Then Alice Little pulled herself up from beneath the table. She looked both dead and unfinished. Her hair hung in lank blonde strands around a face that had once been beautiful. Her eyes were clouded white, but they moved with dreadful awareness. Her wrists were wrapped in red ribbons, soaked through. Her dress was the blue of a childhood memory left too long in water. Callie could not breathe. Mom. Alice's lips parted. The sound that came out was the creak of a door. Then slowly she spoke. Callie. Violet began to cry. The Hatter watched with shining delight. Alice reached across the table. Her fingers were cold when they touched Callie's cheek. I tried to keep you out, Alice whispered. I tried to drown the rabbit. I tried to cut the path from my blood. But Wonderland drinks through wounds. Callie swallowed hard. I can get you both out. Alice's cloudy eyes filled with red tears. No, you can only choose who it keeps. The Hatter slapped the table. There it is, the riddle with bones in it. He leaned over Callie's shoulder, smelling of mercury, sugar, and grave soil. 1 cup saves Violet. 1 cup saves Alice. 1 cup saves you. 2 cups kill the wrong thing. 3 cups wake the Jabberwocky. No cups, and the Queen decides. 3 cups appeared before Callie. The first was painted with violets, the second with white lilies, the third with a crown. Callie stared at them. Cheshire's warning echoed in her mind. When the Hatter asks what you have lost, lie. The Hatter sat across from her, eyes gleaming. Before you choose, I ask the question. What have you lost, Callie Little? Callie looked at Violet, at Alice, at the monsters waiting. She thought of childhood, of every night spent listening to Alice whisper to things that were not there, of every drink Callie took to forget, of every lie she told Violet, of crowns, of blood, of Wonderland's endless hunger. Then she smiled. Nothing, she said. The Hatter's face twitched. Nothing, nothing. The teacups cracked. The March Hare stopped laughing. Alice closed her eyes. Callie moved. She seized the cup painted with the crown and hurled it into the Hatter's face. It shattered against his button eye. Scalding black tea poured into the socket. He screamed, clawing at his face as steam burst through the stitches. Callie drove the knife into the table. The blade sank deep into the lace, into the wood, into whatever ancient thing was pretending to be furniture. The table bucked like a living spine. Plates flew. The cook roared and swung her cleaver. Callie ducked, felt the blade whisper over her hair, and slashed open the cook's belly. The cook fell backward, spilling a torrent of onions, keys, and small white bones. The playing cards surged. Violet twisted in the chair, knocking one spear aside with her shoulder. Alice grabbed another card soldier by its painted face and tore it in half. It screamed paper screams as black pulp sprayed from the wound. Callie cut Violet free. Run, she said. Not without you. The Hatter shrieked from the table. Half his face melted, his grin sagging loose. No one leaves before dessert. The meadow split open. A tower rose in the distance, black against the bleeding moon. Its top was shaped like a crown. From it came a voice that rolled across the land like thunder through a slaughterhouse. Bring me the littles. The Queen of Hearts had spoken. Every card soldier froze. Then, as one, they turned toward the tower. Alice trembled. She felt us. Callie grabbed her mother's arm. Then we move. They ran into the meadow. Behind them, the tea party collapsed into chaos. The Hatter's laughter followed, cracked and furious. Cheshire appeared beside them in flickers, sometimes running on 4 legs, sometimes floating upside down, sometimes only a grin moving through rain. This way, he purred. Why are you helping us? Violet gasped. Because, said Cheshire, if the Queen eats you all, there will be no one left worth teasing. They reached a river, was not water. It was mirror glass, flowing thick and slow, reflecting not faces, but possible deaths. Callie saw herself crowned in thorns, screaming on a throne. Violet saw herself with hollow eyes, holding a bloody crown. Alice saw nothing at all and began to sob. A fairy waited at the bank. The carpenter stood aboard it. He was a long, thin man with arms two-jointed, dressed in a butcher's apron, and a tool belt heavy with saws, chisels, hammers, and hooks. His beard was matted with sawdust and dried blood. Beside him squatted the walrus, enormous and slick, his tusks yellow, his little eyes bright with appetite. The walrus wore a bib. "Passengers," said the carpenter. "We do adore passengers." The walrus licked his whiskers, especially tender ones. Callie raised the knife. "We need to cross." "Payment first," said the carpenter. The walrus opened a ledger bound in skin. "An eye, a finger, a secret, a daughter, a mother, a name." Callie stepped onto the ferry. "You can have a secret." The carpenter smiled. "Delicious." Callie leaned close. "Wonderland is afraid." The carpenter's smile faded. "That is not a secret." "It is to you." For a heartbeat, the river stopped flowing. Then from beneath the ferry, something knocked. The carpenter looked down. The mirror river bulged upward. Faces pressed from beneath the surface, hundreds of them. All the children Wonderland had swallowed, all the names it had chewed into silence. Their mouths opened. Their hands broke through like shards. They grabbed the carpenter first. He screamed as they pulled him apart. Not quickly, not cleanly. His limbs stretched like wet rope. His tools fell one by one, ringing against the ferry floor. The walrus tried to flee, but the hands dragged him overboard. His tusks scraped the deck. His bib tore. Then the mirror river opened and swallowed him whole, leaving only bubbles and a single floating whisker. The ferry drifted across by itself. Violet stared at Callie. "How did you know?" Callie looked at Alice. "Mom's journal." "The realm was built on stolen children. I thought maybe some part of them remained." Alice nodded faintly. "They remain. Everything remains here. That is the horror of it." On the far bank stood the garden of the Queen of Hearts. The roses were red because they were fed. Their roots crawled over the ground like veins, disappearing into mounds of soft earth. Card soldiers patrolled the hedges. Statues lined the path, each one a former guest frozen mid-scream. Some had been neatly beheaded and carried their stone heads in their hands. Others had no heads at all, only fountains of dried blood turned marble. At the garden gate stood Tweedledee and Tweedledum. They were round, pale men in matching stained suits, their bodies swollen like drowned corpses. Their heads tilted in opposite directions. Their smiles were identical and empty. One held a bone saw. The other held a pair of garden shears. "Contrariwise," said Tweedledee. "If you come in, you cannot go out," said Tweedledum. "If you go out, you were never in," said Tweedledee. "If you were never in," said Tweedledum. Then we get to cut you open to find where you are hiding. Callie stepped forward. We do not have time. Tweedledee sighed. No one has time. Tweedledum lifted the shears. That is why we collected. The brothers attacked together. They moved horribly fast for things so bloated. Tweedledee's saw shrieked through the air. Callie caught his wrist and drove her knee into his stomach. It sank too far, as if his body were filled with jelly. His mouth opened, and a stream of black beetles poured out. Violet seized a fallen spear from a card soldier and thrust it into Tweedledum's chest. He looked down, offended. That was mine, said Tweedledee. No, said Tweedledum. This one is yours. They began arguing, even as Violet shoved the spear deeper. Alice moved between them, eyes suddenly clear, and whispered something in Wonderland's old language. The brothers stopped. Their smiles dropped. Their bodies began to turn inside out. It started at their mouths. Their lips peeled back. Their faces folded open like wet flowers. Skin rolled down over collars. Teeth spilled. Eyes popped and dangled. They did not scream until their lungs appeared, pink and fluttering in the open air. Then the roses leaned down and drank them. Violet stared at Alice. Grandma, Alice swayed. I remember more here. I wish I did not. The gates opened. The Queen of Hearts waited in the throne garden. She sat on a throne made of rib cages, beneath a canopy of stitched red velvet. She was beautiful in the way knives are beautiful. Her gown flowed around her like fresh blood, its bodice embroidered with tiny beating hearts. Her hair was piled high, black and glossy, threaded with golden pins shaped like execution axes. Her lips were red. Her eyes were redder. Around her neck hung a necklace of little hearts, each one still pulsing. Beside the throne stood the executioner, faceless beneath a hood, gripping an axe so large it looked impossible for any human arm to lift. Callie Little, said the Queen. Her voice was velvet over bone. Once White Queen, once little girl, once sacrifice, always mine. Callie kept Violet behind her. We are leaving. The Queen laughed softly. Leaving, dear child, you are not in a place. You are in an appetite. Alice stepped forward. Take me instead. The Queen's smile sharpened. Alice Little, my cracked little looking glass, my almost favorite. Almost, Alice whispered. The Queen leaned forward. You escaped. The word curdled the air. Behind them, the garden gates slammed shut. The Queen stood. The roses bent away from her as if afraid. Wonderland is starving, she said. The old doors have closed. The children no longer come as easily. Their world has too much light now. Too many screens. Too many little gods glowing in their hands. They do not dream deep enough to fall. But little blood still opens the way. She pointed one long red nail at Violet. The youngest opens the door. At Alice, the first teaches it hunger. At Callie, and the Queen holds it open forever. Callie felt the realm listen. The sky pulsed, the ground breathed. Every rose turned its face toward her. "No," she said. The queen smiled. "You say that as if no has meaning here." She lifted her hand. The executioner moved. The axe fell toward Violet. Callie threw herself forward and caught the blade with the Wonderland knife. Metal screamed against metal. The force drove her to one knee. Violet rolled aside. Alice raised both hands, and the roses surged upward, wrapping the executioner's arms. The hooded thing did not struggle. It simply turned its blank face toward Alice. Then its chest opened. Dozens of arms burst out, pale and jointed, each holding a smaller axe. They hacked at the roses, chopping them into wet red chunks. Sap sprayed like arterial blood. The queen laughed. Violet ran at the throne, spear in hand. The queen caught her by the throat without looking. Violet's feet left the ground. Callie screamed. The queen squeezed. Violet's face darkened. Her hands clawed at the queen's wrist. "Such fragile doors," the queen murmured. "So easy to break, so easy to open." Alice moved first. She took one of the golden pins from the queen's hair and drove it into her own chest. Callie froze. "Mom," Alice gasped, but her hands stayed firm. She pushed the pin deeper, beneath the breastbone, into the place where Wonderland had left its hook long ago. The garden trembled. The queen's smile vanished. Alice whispered, "I know where you tied the knot." Then she pulled. Something came out of her chest. Not a heart, not exactly. It was a black root, slick and twisting, connected to something deep beneath the garden. Alice pulled with both hands, sobbing as it tore through her. The queen screamed and dropped Violet. Callie caught her daughter. The root stretched between Alice and the throne. Along it flashed images. Alice as a child falling. Alice screaming in a room of doors. Alice at a hospital bed. Alice holding a rabbit doll soaked in her own blood. Alice whispering apologies to Callie through locked doors. Callie understood. This was the leash, the thing Wonderland had left inside Alice. The queen lunged, but Cheshire appeared on her shoulder, sinking his fangs into her neck. The queen shrieked and tore him away, ripping half his body into smoke. He laughed even as he vanished. Callie ran to Alice. "Let me." Alice shook her head. "No, take Violet. Find the first door, burn it. I'm not leaving you." Alice smiled, and for one moment she looked like the mother Callie had always needed her to be. "You already did, sweetheart. Years ago. That was how you survived." The root snapped. The queen screamed so loudly the roses burst. Alice fell apart in Callie's arms, not like a body dying, but like a story being erased. Her skin became ash. Her hair became white thread. Her bones became porcelain, cracking into tiny pieces. Her final breath touched Callie's cheek. "I'm sorry," Alice whispered. Then she was gone. The Queen of Hearts staggered back, clutching her chest. Beneath her gown, something beat wildly. no longer rhythmical, no longer royal. The garden began to collapse. Violet grabbed Callie's hand. "Mom, we have to go." Callie looked at the ash on her fingers. Then she looked at the Queen. "No." Violet's voice broke. "Mom." Callie rose. The Queen's face twisted with fury. "You cannot kill me. I am the heart of Wonderland." Callie walked toward her. "Hearts can stop." The Queen attacked. She moved like red lightning. Her nails opened Callie's cheek to the bone. Callie stumbled, tasted blood, and swung the knife. The Queen caught her wrist and twisted. Pain exploded up Callie's arm. The knife fell. The Queen seized Callie by the hair and forced her to look at the throne. "You will sit," she hissed. "You will wear the crown. You will open the door. You will birth a new age of madness into your world, and every sleeping child will know my name." Violet slammed the spear through the Queen's back. The point burst from her chest between the embroidered hearts. The Queen looked down, offended rather than hurt. "Little door," she whispered. Violet twisted the spear. Callie caught the fallen knife with her left hand and drove it upward beneath the Queen's ribs. The blade found the true heart. For a moment, the world went silent. Then the Queen of Hearts opened her mouth, and every voice she had ever stolen came pouring out. Men, women, children, kings, beggars, rabbits, cards, queens. A scream made of centuries. Her body split with red lights. The hearts on her gown burst one by one. The garden flooded. Callie and Violet ran. Behind them, the throne collapsed into a pit of poolsing meat. The executioner knelt at the edge and calmly removed its own head. Card soldiers folded into blank paper. The roses thrashed, uprooting themselves, crawling after the last drops of royal blood. The sky tore open. Beyond the tear, something looked in. The Jabberwocky. Callie had seen monsters in Wonderland, but this was different. This was not a creature of the realm. This was the hunger beneath it. Its head pushed through the split sky, vast and dragon-like, with antlers made of black bone and eyes like burning graves. Its jaws opened sideways, then opened again, revealing rings of teeth and a throat full of stars going out. Its voice entered Callie's skull. "Queen dead, door open, blood remains." Violet screamed and fell to her knees. Callie dragged her up. "The first door," Violet gasped. Grandma said find the first door. Cheshire appeared beside them, flickering badly. Half his face was missing, but the grin remained. "This way," he said. "Can you still lead us?" Callie asked. "No," said Cheshire, "but I can mislead everything else." He turned toward the Jabberwocky. "Oh, great ugly poem, wrong way." Then he ran left. The Jabberwocky followed. Callie and Violet ran right. They crossed the Mirror River on shards of broken reflection. They passed the tea party, where the Hatter was crawling through wreckage, trying to scoop his melted face back into place with a spoon. Leaving so soon, he called. Callie did not stop. The Hatter's voice rose behind her. No one leaves Wonderland. His laughter became sobbing. His sobbing became steam. They reached the clearing of the caterpillar. His split corpse still framed the little green door. The golden knob blinked. Back again, it yawned. Open, Callie said. The knob smiled. A price. Callie lifted the knife. I have paid enough. The knob's smile faded. Behind them, the trees crashed as something enormous approached. Violet gripped Callie's arm. Mom, Callie pressed her bleeding palm to the door. Little blood opens the way, she said. So open. The door shuddered. The knob screamed as cracks spread through the wood. Light shone from within, not warm light, not safe light, but the gray light of the real world just before dawn. The door opened. Inside was Alice's bedroom. The Jabberwocky roared behind them. Callie shoved Violet through. Violet fell into the bedroom among broken mirrors. Callie turned back. The Jabberwocky burst into the clearing, crushing trees beneath taloned feet. Cheshire clung to one of its antlers, laughing weakly as he tore at its eye. The beast shook him loose. The cat hit the ground and dissolved into a grin. Run, he whispered. Callie stepped backward through the door. The Jabberwocky lunged. Its jaws closed on the doorway. Callie slashed the knife across the threshold. The green door screamed like a living thing. The frame split. Wonderland convulsed. The Jabberwocky forced its snout through, teeth snapping inches from Callie's face. Its breath smelled of dead suns and children's nightmares. Violet grabbed Callie from behind and pulled. Together they fell into Alice's bedroom. The door collapsed. The mirror shards exploded upward, then rained down as harmless dust. The walls groaned. The house shook from foundation to roof. Somewhere inside it, the white rabbit screamed. Late, too late. Then silence. Dawn came gray and thin. Callie and Violet sat on the floor of Alice's bedroom, holding each other among the ruins. Rain tapped the windows. The mirrors reflected only the room now. No gardens, no rivers, no teeth. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Violet whispered, "Is it over?" Callie looked at the place where the largest mirror had been. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to lie beautifully. Instead, she said, "I don't know." They burned the house that morning. Callie poured gasoline through every room, the foyer, the kitchen, the hall where portraits had watched and bled. Alice's bedroom last. Violet stood outside by the car, wrapped in a blanket, eyes fixed on the upper windows. Before Callie struck the match, she saw Alice's journal lying open on the floor. The pages turned by themselves. One final line appeared in fresh ink. A door burned is not a door forgotten. Callie stared at it. Then she lit the match. The house went up quickly. Fire climbed the walls with a hungry roar. Windows burst. Smoke poured into the pale morning. The carved rabbit on the front door blackened, curled, and split. For one terrible second, Callie thought she heard claws scratching from the other side. Then the roof collapsed. Violet came to stand beside her. In the flames, something moved. A shape like a woman, a shape like a rabbit, a shape like a crown. Then nothing. By noon, the little house was ash. Callie and Violet drove away without looking back. Neither of them noticed the tiny white rabbit sitting in the ditch beside the road. Its fur was clean. Its eyes were bright. Around its neck hung a little silver watch. The watch was not ticking. It was beating. Weeks passed. Callie tried to build a life out of ordinary things. Coffee, locked doors, morning light, phone calls with Violet, therapy appointments where she said enough truth to sound honest, but not enough to be committed. She moved into a small apartment above a bakery because the smell of bread made the world feel real. At night, she did not sleep much. When she did, she dreamed of Alice, not the broken Alice from Wonderland, and not the frightened Alice from the old house. She dreamed of Alice standing in a field of white grass under a blue sky, smiling sadly. "You saved what you could," Alice told her. "Not enough," Callie said. "It never is," said Alice. Then the dream changed, as dreams do. The grass became hair. The sky became skin. Alice's smile widened too far, and from somewhere behind her came the Hatter's voice, whispering, "More tea." Callie woke screaming. On the 43rd day after the fire, a package arrived at Violet's apartment. It was small, wrapped in brown paper. No return address. No postage mark. Violet called Callie immediately, her voice shaking. "Mom, do not open it," Callie said. "I didn't." "Good, put it in the sink. I'm coming." There was a pause. "Mom, yes, it's ticking." Callie drove across the city faster than she should have. Her hands clenched the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. She told herself it could be anything. A prank, a mistake, a cruel coincidence. But there are no coincidences after Wonderland. Violet met her at the door, pale and barefoot. The package sat in the kitchen sink. Callie approached with the Wonderland knife in hand. It had not stopped humming since the morning the package arrived. She cut the string, peeled back the paper. Inside was a teacup, white porcelain, painted with red hearts. In the cup sat a single human tooth. Folded beneath it was a note. The handwriting was elegant, looping, and mad. "Dearest Littles, thank you for attending. The next seating will begin shortly. Please bring a guest." Callie crushed the note in her fist. Violet began to cry. Silently, the way people cry when terror has gone too deep for sound. The teacup cracked. From inside, it rose a curl of steam. The steam smelled of sugar, blood, and lavender. Somewhere very far away and very close, a rabbit laughed. This is where the story ends for tonight. Thank you for listening. If this story followed you into the dark, leave a like, subscribe for more nightmares, and tell me in the comments which door you would have opened. Until next time, keep your lights low, your mirrors covered, and your clocks far from your bed. Because when the ticking stops, the rabbit is already inside. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close in this moment so